Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. It is MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about AEW Blood and Guts from July the 24th, 2024. So before we get into that, however, we got to talk about the news. The news is an interesting bit and probably going to end up being the most of this episode. There is a lot of issues going around. Let's start with AEW first and then tangentially Warner Bros. Discovery. So AEW, it was announced by a bunch of people online that AEW has signed a new TV deal, and they were going to be on Max. And this blew through the internet because I think the guy's name was BJ Bethel on Twitter. Most people have no idea who this guy is. He's never really reported anything before. He put that out there. A bunch of people took it and ran with it. There was absolutely no confirmation from AEW, Warner Bros. Discovery, or anyone else that this deal had been signed. So if you Google it and you look it up, you try to find some details, all you're going to see is wrestling media outlets saying deal likely done, deal likely to be signed. It's like, if it's not signed, then there is no deal. Warner Bros. Discovery is still in the midst of it's going to end up going to court between them, EMBA, and Amazon. That's probably going to end up in court. So the idea that they're still negotiating with AEW is like, yeah, and it should not be a surprise, and you shouldn't rush it. It is what it is on that front because the NBA deal is so incredibly massive. It's worth like $77 billion or some nonsense like that. Not all of it has to be, of course, paid at one time, but the NBA is trying to go over to Amazon and a bunch of other networks that will net them about $77 billion. Warner Bros. Discovery had the option to match it. They claimed that they matched it. The NBA claimed that they did not. So they're just going to have to end up going to court. In any event, the AEW is not the most important thing to them right now. And look, I'm not on the doom and gloom side. I'm on your side, AEW fan. I'm saying, look, they will re-sign them. Just wait for it. Stop listening to random Twitter accounts. If Dave Meltzer doesn't have any details, why are you listening to him? Tell him to put it in his newsletter. Put it on paper. And not in some podcast that this is happening, all right? The bottom line of it all is, until it's announced by AEW, and it will be, that they have been re-signed to a lucrative deal, whatever it is, just shut up about it. Just shut up and wait. The idea that people are trying to get the jump on it, I'm going to report that it's up on Max, and I got screenshots, and the people will believe me if I have screenshots. Well, some guys from WrestleNomics looked it up, found out that AEW have separate deals internationally, like in France, where AEW pay-per-views have gone up in France on Max, and it has nothing to do with the United States. It's like, let things develop. Again, I'm on your side. Let things develop. They're dealing with a huge scenario with the NBA right now. I get that AEW is important to you, but the NBA is central to the business of Warner Bros. Discovery. They absolutely positively want the NBA back more than they want anything. And if they lose the NBA, you're probably going to lose a lot of viewers anyway, as people are going to cut cable and just not watch Turner at all because there's no NBA. Sure, there's going to be some other things there, but the NBA is the main driver of business for Turner. That's why they're fighting so hard for it. Just give it some time. I know that Warner Brothers Discovery is frustrating you, but you got to give it some time. You can't rush it, unless you want to just sign anything, But apparently the exclusive window is over, and they could sign with another network if they wanted to. But it seems to me that this is what Tony Khan wants. He wants Warner Brothers Discovery. So it works out. I mean, it's top 10 networks. It works. Anything else would be a step down. Okay, let's get into the show. Will Ospreay got his car sabotaged. Why was there a camera there? Never mind. He stole the Alex Marvez's keys, he took his keys and drove, to the arena. MJF came out with cheerleaders. There were streamers and a bunch of other stuff. He called Will Ospreay a gutless coward for not using the Tiger Driver 91. Says he's waiting on the right moment to get Swerve. Says that he wants Will Ospreay to bury himself right next to his big fat old dead grandma. Says that this championship, the international title, is the workhorse title, but working hard is for the poors. And just like everybody in that building, that title is trash. So he threw the belt in the garbage. So on a podium, he had a title that he says is worthy of him and worthy of the greatest place on earth. And he has an American championship. Then the belt looks nice. I know a lot of people said the belt is ugly. It's gaudy. It's for sure gaudy. But it's a nice belt. He now has an American championship. There are streamers, and he said this is not for places like, where were they at? Nashville? It's not for places like Nashville. It's for real places like Long Island, New York. Will Ospreay then chased MJF from the ring and challenged him to a match at All In, which is going to be his rematch. Will Ospreay then got the title out of the garbage, and now MJF is running around with the American Championship, while Will Ospreay is walking around with the international belt. What an interesting piece of business this is. Okay. I like the Super Americana element of it. Maybe it's because I'm a patriot, but all that America, fuck yeah, in your face stuff, I love that. It works with me, bro. Clearly, this is happening because MJF is going to Mexico. And he's definitely just going to pull a QT Marshall, go to Mexico with all these flags and be Superman America in Mexico and get tons of cheap heat, because you're only allowed to be a foreign heel in Mexico or Japan. You can't do it in the United States for some reason. You can only be being an American is being a heel these days, except for your Cody. And then in that case, you still have to be the Nightmare. So this ought to be fine. A lot of people noted, and I also noted, that Pac was the number one contender for the international title at All In, and that has since changed. Pac defeated some guy on this show, and it was not mentioned at all that he was supposed to have that match at All In, and now it's gone. Apparently, clearly he's just going to wrestle MJF on television at some point in time, which is fine, except you told me that he was wrestling at All In. And then I'm also left apoplectic about this whole thing due to Daniel Garcia, because I thought all of this was about building up to his big moment, and apparently not. Look, I guess Will Ospreay and MJF is the biggest match you can do for the biggest show that you can do. And I heard that the tickets have stalled, around 42,000, which is still a lot. A lot of people are giving them grief for not having, in the 50s or 60,000. 40,000 is very good for a company that is struggling in the United States. To be able to go over in Europe and get that shot in the arm, that B12 shot, is good. So, get off their back about that. I mean, the British fans was always going to come out for them. And having Will Ospreay on the card versus MJF in a feud works, rather than just booking them in a match. And I guess it's fine that it's a rematch, because now everybody just kind of knows Will Ospreay is going to win. And they're going to at least keep the implicit promise that Will Ospreay is going to win a championship in his hometown. It's not going to be the world championship, but it's going to be a championship. But I thought Daniel Garcia was going to come back, be the triumphant hero, and beat up MJF. Now that's seeming like that's not going to be the case. So now I question, what was the purpose of you putting Daniel Garcia in this situation? Because clearly MJF is just going to lose the title back to Will Ospreay. So is Daniel Garcia going to be gone until after All In? And then maybe Daniel Garcia wrestles MJF at Grand Slam or All Out and beats him there? Is he going to beat MJF at all? You know, and it would mean something if he actually beat him for that title. But then again, maybe he beats Will Ospreay for the title. He has to beat both of them, as far as I'm concerned. If you're serious about trying to make this guy, not saying that you should be, you know, I'm just, you know, helping Tony Khan with the decision he's already made. If I was going to make the decision, Daniel Garcia wouldn't be the guy that I would put all this effort into, but the decision's been made already. But you can't have the guy get the shit kicked out of him. He gets strangled by MJF and everything, and he gets MJF doesn't get any comeuppance for it. That's just making Daniel Garcia look weak. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The promo for MJF was fine. It's just the usual MJF fare. He insults the fans, calls them poor, and puts himself super over. But the belt is gaudy. It's loud. It's really in your face. I like that. That's the point of it. The point of the belt is to be obnoxious. And so it worked. It worked. Apparently they're not going to rename the title. It's just going to be, this is what they're calling it while he has it. I saw a lot of people running around talking about, oh, they stole the U.S. title. It's a bootleg U.S. title. It's like, man, there's been 100 American and United States championships throughout wrestling. Relax. Get off these people's back, man. There's a lot of things for you to complain about in AEW. Them having an American championship just so this guy can go to Mexico and make some noise is not one of the things you should be complaining about. What you should be complaining about is this absolutely god-fucking awful Chris Jericho versus Minoru Suzuki match. Dude, I was hoping somebody in a hood and a scythe would just come out there and cut them both down. This is where we needed the clown from the Showtime at the Apollo with the gigantic cane and just pull them off the stage. This was an embarrassment. Tony Khan needs to stop booking these people. If you're going to book Jericho, put him in there with somebody young who can work. If you're going to book Minoru Suzuki, think twice and don't do it. He's not relevant to your roster. Nobody cares about him. Stop it. Seek help. I don't care what you thought was going to happen. You were not going to get anything positive out of this. This was trash. After the match, Minoru Suzuki beat up Chris Jericho. It was a stupid finish, too. I think it was like a flying forearm or something. It was stupid. Anyway, Suzuki beat up Jericho after the match. Big Bill and Brian Keith beat up Minoru Suzuki, and then Shibata ran them both off. Who cares? How terrible was that? That was very terrible. Willow, she's a champion. She is now the champion of CMLL, the women's champion there. And she got attacked by Chris Statlander, who wants not a championship match, because that would be smart. She wants an eliminator match against old Eye Candy. I called her Eye Candy. I found a way to watch WoW. You could watch it on Pluto TV, and I've been watching it from episode 1. And Willow Nightingale was on there as Eye Candy. So every time, so that's just in my head now. But Chris Statlander versus Willow could be a title match. Like, is CMLL not going to say? I mean, I would imagine Willow is not going to lose. You wouldn't beat her, would you? Since you're not gonna beat her, she could just defend the title and win. You know, like, why would Chris Statlander go through all this to not get a title shot? Dumb. Next, Danielson is sitting down and he's trying to relax his body for his big match at All In. He's got, the neck injury or whatever. Jeff Jarrett walks over. He's all somber. He's, reflective, saying that he was upset about losing the Owen, but Danielson was the right guy. He was the perfect guy. It says that he has to win the world championship. He has to win because a bunch of people believe in him and he's at the top of the list. Good job from Jarrett. Jarrett he's been a revelation. I mean, you've been around the business for 20 or 30 years. You know how to make this thing work, man. Jarrett is good. Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida. This was not good. These two guys wrestled like they had never wrestled each other before. It was slow. It was kind of confusing. It gave me way too many opportunities to leave it, to get out of it. I'm not sure if Sheeta is a babyface or a heel. Like, she was very aggressive and heel-like. But then when she was going to grab her kendo stick to hit Britt Baker with it, she struggled against it mightily and decided not to do it. So I was like, okay, so I guess she's a babyface. And then she lost with the lockjaw. Whatever. This was sad. Britt Baker, got to get that ring rust off. She ain't been in the ring in over a year. I'm going to try to cut her some slack. I'm being very, very generous. Usually I would just say this is trash and move on. But I'm going to say there's probably ring rust due to not being around for a while. But tighten up. This needs to be tightened up immediately. Hikaru Shida also destroyed Sky Blue's ankle. Well, maybe Sky Blue destroyed Sky Blue's ankle. I didn't watch the show, so I don't know. Anyway, Mercedes interrupted the big celebration for Britt Baker for her big return to the ring. She refused the challenge for All In. And then Camille Brickhouse attacked Britt Baker from behind. And apparently she's going to be the new bodyguard of Mercedes Moné. And it's a good role. This is what Camille was doing in the NWA for the first 2 years. She was the bodyguard for Nick Aldis. She has been under contract since January. Think about that for a second. She's been under contract since January. And people were complaining over and over, on and on and on, about Camille just sitting at home. Eventually, that stuff got to Tony Khan. Maybe somebody on Twitter saw it, and they was like, let's do something with Camille. We have her on the roster. Okay, we'll put her with Mercedes. Okay, fine. Mercedes is tiny. Camille is big. This works. It's simple. You don't have to overthink it. Introduced it in a way that makes sense, where Britt Baker constantly stalking Mercedes Moné and, trying to attack her. So she needed a bodyguard. And Camille is going to be her bodyguard. We got ourselves a Shawn and Diesel situation here. It works. Camille, she's not terrible in the ring. She's actually pretty good. But it's a huge step back for her as a character because she had kind of outgrown the muscle gimmick. And now she's right back in it because Tony Khan had never seen her do anything else. He didn't watch when she was wrestling as the world champion in the NWA. And can you blame him? Because I don't. Christian apparently has championships. I think these are the trios titles, I guess. Anyway, he started talking about Nick Wayne winning Royal Rampage. That's still a thing. Nick Wayne cut a terrible promo. He's a pencil neck geek, but he's also like 19. He's only cut him some slack. Mariah May beat up a jobber. Tony Storm went through all the trouble of dressing up to attack her from behind and then did not attack her from behind, let her turn around, and then they scrapped. To which Tony Storm yelled, "Are you prepared to die? Because I am." I don't believe her, but it was a nice line. Okay, so at this point, there were 5 matches on this show. 2 of them were jobber matches for Pac and Mariah May. And the other 2 were star versus star, quote unquote, but they were both terrible. So at this point, the show was in the gutter. Okay, at this point, the show is in a sad state of affairs. And if you've been listening to this channel for a long time, you know your boy Mongo do not like war games. I don't like WWE war games. I don't like WCW war games. I don't like TNA's. What they call it? It wasn't war games. Lethal Lockdown, they called it. I didn't like that. I do not like the war games concept. It's dumb. All right. For people, because I always have to say this, there might be some new folks around. So if you heard this before, I'm sorry. The reason I don't like the war games concept is that there is no stakes to the match until everyone is in the ring. Meaning, you're just watching, about 25 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever, of people engaged in mindless fighting. And it's just going on and on and on because the match can't end until everybody's in the ring. So technically the match don't even start until everybody is in the ring. So the drama of the match doesn't begin until the bell rings. And that only happens 25 minutes in. All right. So I don't like war games. It's a ridiculous concept that should have been dead. It should have been shot in the head and killed a long time ago. Or modified to the point where it could actually end early. That way the numerical advantage and all that kind of stuff would matter more. But they chose not to do that. Now, AEW did do something kind of slick that I will give them credit for. They had Dean Malenko do the narration for the vignette. He has a good narrating voice. Well done. Also glad to hear that Dean Malenko's up and around. I know he was sick for a long time. They did a crooked coin toss to give the Elite the advantage. They're just terrible. They're bad at everything. Team AEW was arguing because they're all stupid. This is a ragtag team of guys who didn't even really like each other. Now they're arguing. Darby Allin told Swerve to shut up and he's not the leader. Then the Acclaim want to fight Darby. They want to fight Swerve. It was like, all this is coming out of nowhere. You know, like this, I guess a team just finally formed over the weekend or something like that. So I was like, okay, I'm not interested in this. Don't really care about this. So let's skip until what everybody comes in, because that's when the match actually matters. Hangman Page, he refuses to come out of his chute. He's the last one for his team. Swerve comes out for his team. He's the last person to come into the match, period. Hangman attacks Swerve from behind, handcuffs him to the cage. He then pummels him, hits him with the title, hits him with a chair, hits him with some more stuff. The Young Bucks are watching this. They're in disgust. They're like, what is this guy doing? One of the Jacksons get the microphone. Pretty sure it's Nick. He's screaming it's probably Matt. He's screaming into the microphone that Hangman is going to get fired unless he gets his ass in the ring and helps them. So Hangman gets in the ring to help the Young Bucks, and the Elite have a 5-4 advantage. Jeff Jarrett comes down to ringside. He beats up Brandon Cutler, who I thought was already dead. Gets the key, unlocks Swerve. Swerve gets into the match. Now we get all of the shenanigans. We get a briefcase full of staple guns. Everybody stapling Swerve's body and him laughing at it because nothing matters. Just none of it matters. Hangman Page hit Okada with a buckshot lariat. Didn't mean anything. It accounted for nothing. Anthony Bowens fell off the side of the cage and went through a table. Mark Briscoe put one of the Young Bucks through a table. Darby Allin climbed the cage, did his coffin drop through a table. Now, that was actually pretty cool because he was dangling from the roof. That was not bad. We ended up with Jack Perry handcuffed to the cage. He gets beat with sticks. He gets beat with chairs. Then Nick Jackson gets handcuffed to the bottom rope. There's just all kinds of stuff going on. Darby Allin then gets a microphone. And now he's making threats. He's threatening to light Jack Perry on fire. Jack Perry's laughing at him. He then tells Jack Perry to quit and to give him a TNT Championship match at All In. Jack Perry is still not responding and not giving him no reaction at all. Nick Jackson is sitting on his butt, looking up. I don't think he's even bleeding anymore, or he's probably blood's dried. But he's talking in clear English. This has gone too far. Enough's enough. That's enough, man. Just stop this. And Darby Allin's like, I'm going to set him on fire if you don't quit. And so, Nick Jackson's like, okay, sure. You want the TNT Championship match at All In? You got it. Just put that thing down and let's forget all this. Let's just go our separate ways. And then Darby Allin was like, no, you have to quit. And he's like, okay, we quit. And I was like, wait, what? What? This was even worse than the quitting between AJ Styles and Cody. He was in no danger. He was in no danger. He quit like, yeah, this is going far enough. He didn't quit because they were in danger. He didn't quit because they were hurt. He quit like he was just aggravated and just wanted all this to stop, He quit like a dad who keeps getting asked, can I have another cookie? Okay. You can have another cookie. Please just leave me alone. That's how he quit. Like, okay, just leave us alone, bro. Like, yes, whatever. Take it. Get it. You get a title shot. Let's leave me alone. It's like, we had all this match. And this is how you see, I'm telling you, you got to get rid of this match type. You got to get rid of it. And then they went back to the old rules where it wasn't no pin. So it was submission or tap out. And instead of somebody actually tapping out, they had Nick Jackson quit. And then he quit to supposedly save Jack Perry. But since we didn't see any fire, and he had already set Jack Perry on fire, by the way. He had already done that. He did that before, and they put him out. So I would imagine they would have just did the same thing all over again. But I hate it. I hated the finish here. He sounded like an exasperated dad. He did not sound like he was in danger. It didn't sound like anything was hurting. He was talking almost perfectly normal. Actually, these guys got been stabbed with screwdrivers. They've been stabbed with scissors. They got barbed wire. They've gone through tables. And he's just slightly annoyed. And the match is over. Who cares, man? What a disaster this thing is. Every year, this blood and guts thing gets worse. It gets worse, man. Oh, I don't care about you guys thinking that I'm like a hater or something. I really don't. I don't like this match type. I don't like the people involved in this thing. Okada, I don't even know what he was doing here. He looked like he was gingerly walking around. He looked like he was on a leisurely stroll. Like, oh, these guys doing all this stuff. I don't want to do any of this crap. But I don't think he bladed or anything. I think he just basically took some bumps and chilled out. Didn't beat himself up too badly. You wanted blood and guts, you got it. So there it is. One last thing before we go. Keith Lee apparently is about to leave AEW. And Malachi Black, they're not sure whether he's staying or going. I've heard that he's staying. I've heard that he's going. I don't know. And it don't matter. And Buddy Matthews apparently is re-signed with AEW, which is interesting considering he might have a better shot in WWE now with his now wife working there and being in the top. But, you know, hey, maybe he's happy doing what he's doing and maybe the money is too good to turn down. But the big conversation, of course, is about Keith Lee, who a lot of people are very disappointed in due to his health issues. And I know having COVID in like 2022 or 2021 really wrecked his momentum, really ruined him. And then, of course, the Bearcat thing. But he hasn't really done much of anything in AEW either. He actually done a lot of more embarrassing things in AEW, like letting himself go gray, you know, wearing a cape. Oh, my God. There's been so many horrible things in AEW that Keith Lee has done that I think he would be smart to just disappear. I mean, go to TNA. You can work once a month or something. I'm really trying to push people into TNA. You don't need to be in AEW. The roster is stacked. They don't have time. They don't care. WWE, same thing. There's plenty of room for your growth and to show who you really are in TNA. I would strongly suggest somebody like Keith Lee, if he's not going to re-sign with AEW, for him to sign with TNA. I think that would be the best option for him. Malachi Black, I'm not sure. I know he's got a really bad back. I know he's denied that, so I'm not sure how bad his back actually is or what's going on with him. If he doesn't wrestle a lot in AEW as it is, so I don't see whether he comes or goes being a big deal. But of course, you know, I think a lot of people wanted him to come back to WWE to see what he could do. But the supernatural, spooky kind of characters, I'm not sure that they fit in what Triple H is doing now. But we're watching the Wyatt Six, and they're doing okay with that. But it's very different, and it doesn't seem to be directed at all. And it was similar to what's going on with the House of Black in AEW, where it was cool while it was there, but did it have any direction? No. Did it seem to really elevate anybody? Even when they were champions, it didn't seem to elevate anybody. It just seemed to be a cool side project that sometimes popped up and did things and then disappeared. The one cool angle they really had was with Edge, and then they kind of botched that one up too a little bit. I like Malachi Black. I think that he could do something in WWE because he can drop all the mysticism and do just good pro wrestling. He can talk. The character actually adds something to him, and it's not the whole of what he is. So I hope he comes back. I think there's room and space for Malachi Black, and I think there's something that he can actually do in WWE and something he can actually add. I'm not sure he actually adds anything in AEW anymore. And I don't think they really cared about him from the beginning. He's been under contract for 3 years. If he has to stay under contract for another year, which is what I heard, that they're going to pick up whatever option it is, and he's going to be there until 2025, it's going to be over with. He might as well go to TNA afterwards too, because at that point he'll be about 40, and then that'll be it. But Blood and Guts, as a show, I didn't care for it. Minoru Suzuki and Chris Jericho really was terrible. It was really awful. Unprotected chair shots to the head in the main event. Look, I'm not a babysitter. You know, I'm not going to be running around telling these guys not to do it. But they're doing it. AEW has always been willing to push those buttons and do the unprotected chair shots, but I'm not even tripping on that. I just got bored of the scissors and the screwdriver, and I got bored waiting for something to happen that matters. And that's just my general disinterest in the War Games concept in general, which I think is a boring match. You know, I hate War Games, so it is what it is. But unprotected chair shots to the head, handcuffs, barbed wire, it's just kind of like, who cares? But even that match was not nearly as bad as Jericho and Suzuki. And both of those matches, well, Jericho and Suzuki is the worst thing I've seen in a long time. But Britt Baker and Shida, it wasn't much better. You know, it was slightly better, but it wasn't much better. And so the best matches on the show were the jobber matches, as far as I'm concerned. But that should tell you that I didn't really enjoy the show. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.